You cannot make the most optimal and ideal decisions for your business. And as a business leader, you are always making decisions. You cannot make those decisions with energy, with enthusiasm, with creativity, and with wisdom if you are feeling internally anxious.
Our guest today is a motivational speaker and best-selling author who helps professionals overcome financial anxiety. After facing $2 million in debt, he discovered ancient wisdom that transformed his relationships with money. His book, Stress Less, Prosper More, provides a 5-step framework to help achieve financial stability. With 30 years of experience, an MBA, and his background as a pulpit rabbi, he offers practical strategies for success. Welcome to the show, Rabbi Abraham Jacks.
Thank you so much, Lance. I'm super excited to be on the show. I've been looking forward to our conversation today. I really love what you're doing with the podcast, and I'm excited to dive in.
I gotta ask, how did facing $2 million in debt transform your relationship with money? And what ancient wisdom helped you through this?
Great question. So I used to consider myself to be a sleep champion, right? And what I mean by that is like I could get 8 hours, 9 hours, even 10 uninterrupted, blissful sleep. I was always able to pay all my bills easily on time. I always earned more money than I spent. And I thought I was pretty responsible with money. And then I purchased a beautiful home, very large, modern home. I had 7 children at that time in private school. And so after tax money, that's a lot. And
Yes, no kidding.
I lost my job, and a really well-paying job. And all of a sudden, I'm like this former sleep champion. And all of a sudden, I cannot sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm sweating. I'm nervous. My whole life became consumed with anxiety and dread. What if the car breaks down? How am I going to fix it? What if I can't pay the school fees? Are they going to expel my children
Sure.
from their private schools? It was a really difficult period emotionally for me, but I made a really strong decision. And that was that I will not allow fear and anxiety to define the rest of my life. No way. I had to conquer this thing. I had to conquer this dark cloud that was over me. So I did what some people may call research. I call it me search. And the reason is because I looked at different things, how to deal with anxiety. And I came across a lot of tools, a lot of interesting studies, scientific studies. And I tried these tools and studies on myself. And where it felt that it was helping me, that became a tool that got into my book ultimately. So I wrote the book as a way of consolidating my journey with fear, with anxiety, my relationship with money, which I thought was a healthy relationship, but when I examined it under those circumstances, I realized that I'd picked up a lot of really negative attitudes about money from my parents, and I had brought those through to and they were impacting my life. They were causing me that anxiety, that financial anxiety that I was feeling. And it's a journey that's still ongoing. I'm not perfect by any means, but I feel I am in a position now where I am much more calm. Things can happen, and chaos happens, life happens, and these tools have helped me and do help me to face life with calm, with equanimity, and to be able to get through, to be creative. Fear robs you of creativity. It robs you of the ability to find solutions to the problems that you're facing. And the tools that I discovered and wrote about in the book, these tools have really been able to help me uh, 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 um, deal with financial anxiety, repair my relationship with money, and have generally brought much joy and delight into my life, back into my life again. I'm still not such a good sleeper, but working on that.
Nice. Give us an overview of the 5-step framework from your book, Stress Less and Prosper More.
Sure, with pleasure. So, the the framework is based on an acronym. The acronym is PEACE. That's PEACE.
Okay.
And each one of those. So when it comes, for example, to investing. So investing is not just about dollars and data. Investing is also about your inner your mindset, your attitudes towards investing. And I say in the book, and I truly believe this, there is nothing that you can do in a state of fear that you cannot do better in a state of calm, right? Nothing. And that includes investing, because investing, there are many significant decisions that a person has to make where they deploy their capital. And if you're not at peace inside, you are not going to be able to make the optimal decisions and approach things with optimal creativity than if you're calm. So the peace system is really 5 areas where you one can focus on in order to improve a person's calm and not be under the guise of anxiety and fear. So the P in peace, PEAC, the P stands for positive thinking. And positive thinking is about, if we negative, and we have a bias towards negativity as human beings, when we are negative, that negativity attracts and can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when we are positive, that can also become a self-fulfilling prophecy. There was a scientist in England. His name was Dr. Wiseman, and he did a fascinating experiment. He divided the subjects of his study into 2 groups. One group considered themselves lucky and fortunate. They considered themselves um, they had a very positive outlook on life. They were optimistic about the future. And the other group was the opposite. They were pessimistic about the future. They figured that nothing ever fortunate happened to them. So, and then what he did is, as they left the place where the study took place, he left some money, some cash lying on the floor. And it was statistically more significant. The group that felt optimistic about the future was statistically more likely to spot the cash lying on the floor. So you make your own luck, you make your own fortune uh, through being brave, I think you would say, and through being optimistic. So the P stands for positive thinking. The E stands for embracing challenge. The A stands for appreciation or gratitude. The next C stands for certainty and confidence. And the final E stands for empathy. So these 5 steps are the basis of Stress Less, Prosper More, and the basis of this framework or system that I developed to help conquer fear and invite abundance into your life.
Wow. What are some of the common sources of financial anxiety you've identified? You really go into detail on a very specific framework, but those sources of anxiety, how do you try to help people overcome them?
I think a lot of anxiety is stoked and encouraged by the media, the modern media. Remember, media companies of all shapes and forms are first and foremost beholden to their shareholders, and they have discovered that us humans react to fear much more than any other emotion. So by stoking fear, they attract eyeballs and they can charge more for their advertising. So I think a lot of anxiety comes from the way things are portrayed in the press. So about 7, almost 8 years ago, I moved to Toronto, to Canada. And when I arrived here, so one thing that they didn't tell me, because if they would have, I may have reconsidered, the weather is really cold here in Toronto. It snows in the winter. So when I arrived, which was, of course, 8 years ago, pre-COVID, I arrived here with my family in Toronto, and the weather forecast would say something like, it will snow tomorrow. X, inches of snow will fall tomorrow, right? As is the job of a weather forecast to do, to tell you how much snow there's going to be. And they're pretty busy in the winter season telling you that here in Toronto.
Okay.
Today, I look at the headlines, where they weather-related headlines, and they say, weather warning, it will snow tomorrow, X inches. So the language has become so much more fear-inducing. And I
Oh,
think we're
wow.
surrounded by fear. And there are legitimate things that are happening in the world that can cause us to fear. So, for example, AI. A lot of people are quite concerned that AI will take their jobs. And what is the future going to look like in an AI world? And this is something that I've done a lot of thinking about, and I speak about this in public, like Reimagining Humanity. I have a keynote called Reimagining Humanity, and it's about AI. But there's a lot of fear and dread and anxiety around AI, around political changes that are happening in the world, um, and around the fact that there's tremendous amount of layoffs that have taken place over the last year and a half. So there's a lot of, and then of course you look at the stock market on any given day, like today, and it's pretty frightening to look at that. So there's a lot of inputs, there's a lot of reasons that people have to fear today. I think we need to speak more and share tools and resources that help us overcome that fear.
In your 5-step framework, you mentioned empathy. How has your background as a pulpit rabbi influenced your approach to financial success and coaching?
When it comes to anxiety, so we're talking a lot about anxiety today, and when it comes to fear and anxiety, it's a very internal type of feeling. So anxiety, when a person is suffering from anxiety, it's a very lonely experience. You're alone, your heart is beating, there's physiological reactions to fear, there's psychological reactions to fear, emotional, etc. But it's very internalized. You could have a person in a room who's very afraid, and nobody else necessarily will know that. So, what empathy does is it forces you to come out of your internal world. It forces you to reach out to someone else. And there's been a lot of studies that show that if a person is suffering from anxiety, by the way, also depression, and any of the other kind of ills of society, reaching out and helping somebody else, being of service to someone else, whether you of service to them through your time, through your energy, through your money, is actually pulls you out of that internal framework, and it helps you. It's a tremendous, at least speaking personally, it's tremendously has been tremendously helpful. So when I've been particularly anxious, if I've found somebody who I could reach out to and be of service to, that has helped me immensely. It's brought tranquility. It's calmed me down. So I think that empathy is a very important part of the peace framework, in that it takes you out of your own head and allows you to connect with someone else, and it releases endorphins, and there's all sorts of physiological things that happen when somebody helps somebody else. Like human beings, we're hardwired to be kind and compassionate and empathetic to 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 each other. There was a fascinating study that they did in Sweden, where they got this. So apparently, I've never been to Sweden yet. It's on my bucket list. But apparently, there's a lot of Baltic immigrants to Sweden. And for some reason, the Swedish and the Baltics, they, at least back in the day, they didn't get along when they did this study. So there was a lot of animosity between those two groups. So what the scientists did is they did a fascinating experiment. They got actors and they prodded the actors with cattle prods or electrocuted them and caused them tremendous pain. They were only actors, so they weren't really experiencing
Okay.
pain, but
Okay.
they looked like they were experiencing pain. And they put Baltic people, a cohort of Baltic people, and a cohort of Swedish people under MRI scans, and they showed them images of these actors being shocked. And then they told the Baltic people that they were Swedish actors, and the empathy parts of their brain did not light up. In other words, they didn't feel empathy for the other, for that group which was not them.
Okay.
Then they showed them other actors, and they said these are Baltic actors now. These are the Baltic people, and the empathy parts of their brain lit up. So, as one may expect, they had empathy for their own, but they did not have empathy for the other. Now, what the next stage of the experiment, and this is where it gets really interesting. The next stage of the experiment is the Baltic the two groups, and they said, now we're going to shock you. We're going to inflict pain on you. However, if anybody is willing to give up the pay that they are going to get for doing this experiment, for participating in this experiment, we will spare you from that shock or pain or whatever. So they and then they went to a Baltic person. They said, there's a Swede who's agreed to give up their pay that we shouldn't shock you. Okay. So that was one act of kindness, a small act of kindness. I'll give up a few dollars in order that you won't experience pain. But it was somebody from the other group. They told them it's someone from, so they told the Swedish people that it's a Baltic person who saved them, and the Baltic people that it's a Swede that saved them. And
Okay.
then they showed them other images and videos of the other being harmed, being hurt, inflicting pain on the other, and this time their empathy, the parts of their brain that lit up, showing that they were experiencing empathy. So one act of kindness could turn an enemy into a friend. One act of kindness could break those barriers that divided these two populations. So empathy is tremendously powerful, and especially in uncertain times, the times
Mhm.
that we're living in, it's so important to have empathy. So I'm glad that you homed in on the E of empathy, because it is such an important one.
Wow, that's fascinating. Could you share a practical strategy from your book that our listeners can apply immediately to work towards improving their financial situation?
Sure, absolutely. More than the financial situation, the mindset around finances. So then I think I'll speak about A, the letter A, which
Okay.
stands for appreciation or gratitude. So one really powerful and really easy thing to do is take a pen and paper. I don't know if your audiences are old enough to know what that means, pen and paper. So it's like typing, just a little bit different. You take some pen and paper, and every day write down um, 10, 15 things that you're grateful for. And you'll see that it's tremendous. It's very empowering. It's calming. You cannot feel gratitude and fear simultaneously. It is impossible. So having a gratitude journal and just jotting down things that you're grateful for is quite a powerful tool. I'll tell you that there's a wonderful story in the book, and I've gotten a lot of feedback about the book, different parts of it. Very often people will reference this story. So the story is that there was this gentleman in New York City who worked for an investment bank, and he had heard that people have a practice. I've asked for people to write down 10 to 15 things that they're grateful for every single day.
Okay.
This gentleman heard that there's a practice that some people have to write down 100 things that they're grateful for. And he decided he wanted to try this. So this is like extreme. These are those really competitive guys, right? They're going to go for 100. So he sits down, pen and paper, and he starts writing. And first things flow easily. Of course, it's easy to say I'm grateful for my wife, my kids, my parents, family, friends, community. It flows. The 10, 15, quite easy. But obviously, as you get to the bigger numbers, 20, 30, 40 things that you're grateful for, it becomes harder to think of details that you different details that you could be grateful for,
Sure.
100 unique things. So he goes through and he gets to 95 and he's like racking his brain, 96, 97. He writes down 99 things that he is absolutely that he's grateful for. And he gets stuck. What is the 100th thing? And he's racking his brain. He's racking it. I've already put that one down. I've already tried this. And then he finally remembers something. He was born in Argentina. And he grew up, his first language was Spanish. So the 100th thing that he wrote down is, I can speak Spanish. That was the 100th thing that he wrote down. And he closed the book and he was pretty satisfied with himself. The next morning, he comes into the firm, into the bank, the investment bank where he worked. Now, he was a very junior account person. And he comes into the firm and the CEO summons him to his office. Now, he's never been to the CEO's office before. And he figures, what has he done wrong? Like going to the principal's office. What have I done wrong now? And he walks into the CEO's office, and the CEO tells him the following thing. This amazing, amazing thing that the CEO tells him. He says, we've just been able to attract a very large client, a very wealthy man, and he's willing to transfer his assets to our investment bank, to our firm, on one condition. And that condition is he wants his account manager to be able to speak Spanish, because that is his mother tongue, and he wants somebody in the firm that can help him who speaks Spanish. You are the only employee that speaks Spanish fluently, and so therefore we're promoting you to senior account exec, and you're going to deal primarily with this individual.
Wow.
So besides gratitude having tremendous emotional benefits to a person, I really think, like the Wiseman study, it attracts, when you're grateful and you acknowledge what you're grateful for in the world, it attracts to you those things that more of what you're grateful for. You spot them. Your mind works to bring more of that in. You walk around looking, because every night you go, that's right, 10 to 15 things that you're grateful for. You walk around looking for things, and all of a sudden the world becomes such a much more pleasant, much more joyful place, because it's full of blessing. Whereas before, when you're in a state of fear, all you see is what's going wrong.
How do you view the role of community in sharing resources to achieve financial goals together?
I think it's essential. So, um, my background, I'm a rabbi, I'm a Jew, and a lot of Jewish people moved to North America after the Second World War, and they were refugees. They did not know the language; they could not speak English. They did not understand the culture. They didn't have an education. And with all of those things stacked against them, they came to the United States, and by and large, a lot of Jewish people did very well financially. And there are many reasons, I believe, why that is the case. But I think one of the most essential reasons is they came here and they were embraced by the community. Community is absolutely essential. We are not, and I think, we're living in an age today which is, and this is something that makes me afraid. I'm not supposed to be afraid of anything, but I am. I'm afraid of many, many things. And one of the things that I'm fearful of is how we raising children um, in a phone-based way, right? So, and there are many, I think, negatives to giving. So we are the worst parents in the whole world, according to our teenage children, because we are the only parents in the whole world that delays our kids getting a smartphone until they are deep into their teens, deep into their teens. So we are horrible monsters, my wife and I, when it comes to teaching our kids. But I think we are giving them, that's their perspective. My perspective is we're giving them the greatest gift because children have to play. They have to interact with other children. And adults have to interact with other children. We're hardwired for that. So the dopamine hit that we get from looking at our smartphone, it's pretty pleasurable, but it does not replace community. It doesn't replace friendships. It doesn't replace even the negative social interactions that we have. Teach us resilience and help us become stronger if we approach them in the right way. So I think raising children um, today, as we do in a phone-based way rather than a play-based and interactive way, is leading to a lot of the anxiety that we're seeing amongst teens. Like we're seeing levels of anxiety where teenagers, 13, 14-year-old teenagers, are hospitalized for anxiety, for panic attacks. We're seeing these in numbers that are off the charts. And those figures started climbing around 2010. So there was an inflection point at 2010 when when kids, 13, 14-year-old kids, started in increasing numbers being hospitalized because of panic attacks. And in 2008, that's when the iPhone was launched. So I think there's a strong correlation between anxiety and fear and lack of real, like what my kids would call IRL, in real life interaction with other human beings. So we learn so many lessons, including, by the way, our attitudes towards finances from the human to human contact that we have with our family of origin, with our communities, with our schools, and then where we work, etc. And I think, unfortunately for us, we are less and less having that positive community exposure. So I think that to your question, a long way of answering a really good short question, I think community is vital to how we deal with anxiety and also our relationships and our attitudes towards finances.
That's a fantastic answer. And you're 100% right. The nuances of conversation are lost when it's just text. And if you're raising individuals that haven't experienced it and really learned that there's more to communication than just the actual words, they're less equipped to be out there pursuing their dreams as effectively as they could. I do agree with you there. Avraham, in your opinion, how could democratizing access to capital and quality investment opportunities transform an individual's financial destiny? You mentioned community, you mentioned working together, you mentioned empathy across people groups and supporting one another. How much difference does that make to somebody's individual financial destiny?
Great question. I think I often wonder. I wonder about a lot of things. It's dangerous, but I do it. I wonder why people have to earn money. Like, why do human beings, why did God create the world in a way that humans, especially humans, like most animals, they're like lying in a tree, and when they get hungry, they just fall out of the tree and their food is there on the ground waiting for them. But human beings, like, we have to go through through elementary school and high school, and then we have to get an undergraduate degree, and then a postgraduate degree, and then we have to do co-ops and finally get a job, and then we can start making money and move out of our parents' basement, right? So why is it and then we have to work really hard, to earn money. can be very challenging and difficult for people, and there's a lot of hard work. And why is it so difficult? Why was it designed to be so difficult? And one of the answers, I think, for that question is that if it weren't designed this way, if the world wasn't designed this way, if we didn't have to interact with other people and work in groups, and get along, then we would be if we didn't have to earn money, we would be very isolated. Each group would stick with their own. We would live in our own communities. We would never interact with other people. But earning a livelihood forces us, amongst other things, to leave our isolated, insulated, inward-looking worlds and go out. So the most primary commerce is you go to another place, you buy goods. Hopefully, there's not too many tariffs. You bring those goods back into where you and you sell them in the country where you live. And through doing that, you are forced to interact with people from different cultures that speak different languages, that think about things differently than you do. And you must get along, because otherwise that financial exercise will never work. So getting out of your limited scope, seeing things broadly, seeing the entire world and different ideas, and ingesting those different ideas, which, by the way, that's another problem with social media, is that the algorithms are giving you what the algorithm thinks are your already held attitudes and beliefs. So it never challenges those beliefs. But commerce and the ability to earn money challenges your beliefs. It forces you to think creatively and differently about your world, about everything around you. So I think that that commerce is a very important part of our personal growth. So we have to earn money, and having, following something like the peace system, which lets you reinterpret how you look at the world and seeing the world in a different way, can definitely solidify and boost your ability to make money, to generate wealth. And it is an important part of that. A very strong influence of the book Stress Less, Prosper More are the Jewish mystics. And the Jewish mystics were very spiritual people. They were very spiritual. They had very healthy relationships with the material world, but they did not shun materialism. They didn't say that if you have money, that is somehow going to impede your spiritual growth. Money is neutral. It is not good or bad. It is a multiplier.
Yes.
If you're a good person and you have money, you can do fantastic things with that. And if a person is not a good person and they have money, they can multiply the negative impact that they have on the world. So money is neutral. It's a multiplying force. It's a booster, but it is not intrinsically good or bad. Forcing people to earn a livelihood and causes all the things that we're using. Look at this marvelous technology. I mean, it's already become so common that here we're in different places, in the earth. It would take us who knows how many months to travel by wagon to go and meet each other, and we're exchanging ideas, and we can do that with everybody over the world. But who made this? Who made all this technology happen? Somebody made this technology because they wanted to and there was a financial motivation behind it. These are for-profit companies that make money through creating these marvelous technologies. And I think that we should, when it comes to our attitudes towards the world, and towards money, and towards earning a livelihood, we should look at it as the prize that God gives us for making this world a better place. So I am a very strong proponent of people earning money. That is not a negative thing. That is not anti-spiritual. You can be a very spiritual person and accumulate wealth. If you're accumulating wealth, it means you're bringing value to the world.
100%. In my mind, money is a tool that you use, as you say, as a multiplier. And when you make money, it's because you've provided value to other people. That completely makes sense to me. What advice do you have for business owners facing unexpected financial hardships today?
That is the billion or trillion dollar question, I guess. um, it starts from within. You cannot make the most optimal and ideal decisions for your business. And as a business leader, you are always making decisions. You cannot make those decisions with energy, with enthusiasm, with creativity, and with wisdom if you are feeling internally anxious. So buy my book. No, I'm kidding. But at least work on the inner world. Make sure that your inner world, that you're not ignoring that. Make sure that that world is taken care of. And when that world is nurtured and taken care of, and you're in a good place, you will attract abundance to your business. You will make the right decisions that you will be able to guide your business towards increased profitability and increased success and increased impact. So I think it's doing the internal work so that you are in a position to bring good, positive energy into the world around you, selling your products and services in order to attract that abundance in your business.
Avraham, how important do you feel mindset is in setting an approach towards financial prosperity? I know we talked about it earlier, and it was definitely a key piece of your system, but how do you advise somebody to cultivate it as well?
To cultivate the right mindset, a mindset of abundance, it's the peace system, essentially. So the P of peace system is looking at the world and giving things that are happening a positive interpretation. It's embracing challenge. When I say embracing challenge, it's being able to reframe how you see difficulties
Every challenge
in
is an
your life.
opportunity.
Challenge is an opportunity, exactly. It's about, look, um, unfortunately, pain is an inevitable part of our humanity. You cannot live through life. There's no one who can live through life without experiencing some degree of discomfort. So pain is inevitable, but suffering is not inevitable. Suffering is a choice. Suffering is mindset. So when it comes to mindset, you get to choose if you're going to define yourself and identify yourself by those negative experiences that happen in your past, or if you are going to reinterpret things that are happening to you and see them, as you correctly said, not as problems, but as opportunities. And so I think that is mindset, and that is the essence of it. When you get that right, then it builds resilience. It allows you to get through what Seth Godin calls the dip, right? Which is you start a business, everything goes well, you're engaged, you're excited, things are flying, and then inevitably you hit that dip where suddenly things go wrong. Suddenly you don't have the motivation that you had at the beginning. Your energy is less, and you've got to push through that dip. That is the essential thing, and it's only through understanding how the dip is your friend. The dip is what's building those muscles inside of you. Those, it's interesting. Lifting weights, which, if you think about it, lifting weights is about building muscle using something that is designed to weigh you down. Building muscle using something that is designed to weigh you down.
That's a good example.
And that is life. The things that are designed to weigh us down are rarely designed to build us up, to strengthen those resilience muscles and to make us and to engage internal resources that we wouldn't have otherwise discovered if we wouldn't have experienced that difficult period. So I think mindset is essential to getting through those dips in your business. Mindset is essential to being able to create impactful businesses that bring value to more and more people. It all starts with the founder's mindset.
That really resonates with me. You don't get to develop to get to that, what some people call grit, without having to endure and pushing through. That really makes a lot of sense. Avraham, what are your future goals in helping more people achieve financial success and stability?
Thank you for asking that question. So I'm working on my second book at the moment. It's called Private Islands.
Okay.
And it's a book about how to make your business a private island. And what that means is you have mainland businesses. Those are businesses that compete compete primarily on price. It's very crowded in the mainland. And if you could differentiate your business and create a private island, something unique and different about your business, then people will row their boats to your private islands, credit cards in hand, and they will want to engage with your business because it's unique and it's solving a problem that no other business is solving. So in my coaching practice, my business coaching practice, I work with my clients to show them how to scale their businesses by differentiation, and while scaling their business, not to become overwhelmed and allow the business to overwhelm them. So to scale the business and at the same time claim back their life. And that is where I want to focus on the future. So taking my first book, Stress Less, Prosper More, and all the learnings the internal learnings there. And the second book, Private Islands, will be more about how you can actually practically grow, scale your businesses in ways that are sustainable for the founders, that they don't become overwhelmed.
I love to end our episodes with a fun anecdote about our guests. Can you share a story, a fact, or an experience about yourself that our listeners would find entertaining?
Sure. I once played a game at a company. There was an icebreaker at a company that we went to, and it was two truths and a lie. Two things that are true about you, and one that's a lie. So my three things, I won't tell you which is the truth and which is a lie. The first uh, thing that I shared about my life is that I am a martial artist. I practice mixed martial arts.
Okay.
The second thing I said is that I have been um, operatically trained. Like I trained in opera singing. And the third thing is that I have my pilot's license to fly Cessnas.
Okay.
Okay. And not a single person, there were about 50 odd people in the room, not a single person guessed correctly that I was a very keen, not very good, but very keen mixed martial artist. I did have operatic training, but I've never flown a plane.
Oh, that's a fun story. I'd like to give a sincere thank you to our guest, Rabbi Abraham Jacks, for joining us and sharing his insights. Be sure to visit his website and follow him on social media, linked in the show notes. I'd also like to invite you to connect with us on our social platforms and explore more at planetwealth.com. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again on the next episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of Planet Wealth Fortunes of the Brave, check out our other videos for more insights and strategies to elevate your financial freedom. You can subscribe right here and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community and take your financial future to the next level. I'll see you in the next video.